products. So what we're going to talk about here today is specifically this aspect of greening business travel, how companies can kind of use this moment that we're in as an opportunity to reassess business travel, to make business travel's climate impact more transparent, and to help both companies and their employees feel good about what they're doing for business travel.
We know that corporate travel managers project virtual meetings like this one to replace 27% on average of 2022 travel volume. So we are referring here to a quite a relatively big proportion. And I think, you know, the pandemic, of course, has been a crisis, but crucially, as any crisis, the pandemic has accelerated trends. Hence, it has also accelerated, specifically for business travel, the transition to a more carbon intensive, hopefully carbon neutral travel, including business travel.
I don't think that to make business travel greener, we should focus on reducing it, but we need to provide the best solution to make it much more sustainable. And we, of course, as politicians, must develop the regulatory framework that will motivate business to choose more sustainable travel solutions. And this is part of the process of changing the current economic model. That requires changing the fundamental infrastructure with the provision of, for instance, alternative fuel infrastructure, which is one of the bases for changing the transport model.
We're really looking at it across 5 key areas. Firstly, helping our customers be able to track and report on the carbon emissions that they're generating as a result of their travel, on the basis that if you track it, you can manage it. Secondly, looking at how we provide better information at point of sale, working in partnership with airlines, hotel groups, and car rental companies and rail organizations to make sure that we're putting relevant environmental information in front of the business traveler, the consumer, in order that they can make good choices. Thirdly, using our scale globally and working with those companies that I just mentioned, they themselves are making significant investments in producing more sustainable products.
And we're asking companies to reduce their air travel emissions by 50%. In fact, maintain those reduced levels at less than 50% of the pre-COVID levels by 2025. And that actually corresponds with the picture that we see today. We have businesses telling us, yeah, right now we're still at more or less like a 50% rate of travel as compared to pre-COVID.
So if I think about our service providers today, I'm thinking our travel management companies, like online booking tools, air, hotel, rail, car sort of partnerships. And I think as I go into this, I would stress what's critically important is that we get the collaboration across those groups so that they're pulling in the same direction. I think there's a lot of fragmentation in our distribution channels today, and that fragmentation causes problems, particularly if they're all moving in different directions.
You mentioned that people want it. What's getting in the way here? And what do you need from policymakers to make this easier, this modal shift from aviation to rail, which should be so obvious?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, it's got the argument going for it that when you travel by train, it's up to 5 times less emissions, you know, per person per kilometer than by plane. There are challenges there. Now, I think it's really interesting to look at, you know, the kind of relative attractiveness of travel by train, travel by plane. There's a lot going on, and it's evolving quite quickly. I think we saw a lot of disruptions in both modes in the last months, but also a lot of, let's say, efforts to look at how those how the investments can be also made in the train systems to make that an attractive and a feasible alternative.
17 years ago, I was at Eurostar as their head of sales. I saw firsthand what happens when a rail company has a motivation to want to build and sell products to a corporate marketplace. And I saw firsthand what happens when, you know, a rail company has the ability to serve a destination within 3 hours versus 1 hour in the air. Within a period of less than 10 years, Eurostar had the majority of the market share
How is road business travel factored in here?
Yeah, look, I think back to a point Jason made earlier, if you can't measure it today, it can be quite hard to manage it. So that certainly from a corporate business travel program standpoint can be largely off the radar. Folks will jump in a car and go to a meeting, and we'll know when they turn up at the meeting, but we won't necessarily know how they've got there unless we're surveying them. So it's for sure an opportunity, in the elements of control we have when it comes to fleet. If you have fleet or company vehicles, you can obviously look to transition those to EV, and that's something that departments within corporate business are able to do.